Cool. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it out rather early. I think it's rather early to kick off the hyper-casual track. It's great that there are so many of you here, and as Mike just mentioned, there's a lot of expertise around hyper-casual messaging games and so on. So very excited to have a whole track dedicated to this. And today I'm kicking off with what's next with instant games, where are we at with the platform, how are we thinking about it, and what is the strategy moving forward. So quick info about me. My name is Joy. I'm on the Games Partnerships team. I'm based here in London, but our team also exists in Menlo Park in our headquarters, covering our North American and Latin American region, as well as in Singapore, covering APAC. We mainly work hand in hand with developers to really help them succeed on the platform, understand our tools, and so on. So the mission that our team has set itself, and that is the same for our engineering teams and our product teams that actually build the tools for players and for developers, is to build the world's gaming community. And when we think about that, we really think of Facebook as a home for gaming content, whether that is instant games or else, on our platform, and that is across Messenger, that is across Facebook, and all the other entities. So I mentioned that we work with developers, but we actually also work with content creators. So the partnerships team is kind of, I would say, roughly split in half, where half of us work hand in hand with developers like you to help you not only work on instant games, but also on other tools that we provide, like our mobile SDK or a web platform. And then we have a part of the team that works with content creators. And they really work hand in hand and partner with these influencers and game streamers to understand which tools we need to build for them to easier build communities on our platform. So today, of all the things that there are, we're going to focus on instant games. And I do see some very familiar faces that have worked on instant games for a while, and I do see some new ones. So just to bring everyone on the same page, instant games are HTML5 technology. They're based on HTML5, which makes it cross-functional, it makes it very cross-platform, and it makes it very easy for you to deploy games to all the players, no matter which device they are on. The core of instant games is that they are playable across Messenger and across Newsfeed. So at the core of the platform really is a very viral, a very social experience with friends, with communities, with groups that can instantly play games together. And lastly, it's obviously very frictionless. There is no download required. Users play the game, they load instantly, and from there on, share it out to more people. There are a couple of games that we have, or a couple of, I would say, formats that we have seen succeed on the platform. There are a few that I want to call out. I think everybody knows Trivia Crack, probably the largest trivia game on mobile. Etermax has actually adapted the game to the instant games platform, making it a very social turn-based experience that is played inside of a Messenger thread between friends, where you play a trivia-thon back and forth. There are also single-player and hyper-casual games that work very well on the platform. Color Switch is actually a very new addition to instant games, even though it's been on mobile for a while. And again, has been adapted to the platform by putting a social layer on top of it that, even though it is a single-player game, makes it very, very easy to invite friends, challenge friends, steal coins from friends in a very social way through Messenger. And lastly, a very new phenomenon that we have seen on the platform, something that really started taking off at the end of last year, are games like OMG. For those of you who play instant games, you have probably seen them. They really are games where users see this kind of home screen with a lot of questions, can tab on it, a random result is generated, and this is then shared into Newsfeed, which goes very viral. So that is another very interesting concept that we have seen work on the platform. So a quick recap of kind of what has been happening over the last year, and then obviously moving into where we are. I was standing here last year in January, and the platform was in closed beta. We had 100 to 200 games, and it was actually at GDC last year that we officially opened up the platform. It was a massive milestone for our team and for our developers that have worked with us while the program was in closed beta. Ever since then, the platform has gone from 100 to 200 games to multiple thousands, which is very exciting, but also obviously means that a lot of investment has gone into it from us to really make sure that that doesn't break the platform. A few months later, we have also launched an ad unit, which really is a dedicated user acquisition unit for developers to buy traffic in a targeted way. So apart from organic distribution, to really make sure that developers can build very specific audiences around their games. We have then added Facebook app monetization later last year. When we initially launched instant games, the idea was that it runs across Newsfeed and Messenger. We have then added Audience Network, our own monetization solution with ads, into instant games on the Messenger side, and have since followed, seeing that there is traffic on the Facebook side as well, have since followed was also making Facebook traffic monetizable with Audience Network. A bit later last year, we have announced a Messenger redesign. Most of you by now, I think we rolled it out very broadly at the beginning of January, most of you by now should have a new version of Messenger. It looks a bit slicker, it looks a bit more streamlined. That was the whole purpose of it. There is still a very prominent home for instant games inside of Messenger, and so we are continuing to roll that out, and we're continuing to build a hub for instant games there. Even later last year, and actually going into effect today, is bot opt-in. So bots are I would say, the biggest re-engagement channel for instant games. Every instant game can have a bot attached to it that works a little bit like push notifications, where the game can really communicate with the user. We are moving this to an opt-in model for two reasons. One, to really enable developers that build high quality bot experiences to make the most out of it, but also really to make the most out of it for users, to make sure they don't get spammed by hundreds of very low quality bots, but actually can choose the ones that add value to them. And then the question is, what's next for 2019? We do see that the platform continues to grow. The platform continues to grow both in terms of user base, it also continues to grow in terms of revenue, which is very encouraging to us and also should be encouraging for all the developers that have already made investments onto the platform. We see that this also happens because hits keep driving the platform. I don't think this is a very new phenomenon, but it's also a phenomenon that is very true on instant games. We do see that games go viral in specific countries or regions, or games localize in specific countries or regions, which actually grows that country for the entire platform, which is very exciting, but it also does mean that hits definitely keep adding to that growth. Retention keeps improving. I was standing here last year and I would have probably said like, a 15 to 20% day one retention is currently good. We have since way blown past that, which is fantastic. So on one hand, the investments that we are making in terms of really making retention more prominent on the platform is paying off. But we also see that our developers are investing more and more into both long-term and short-term retention on the platform, and that is working. And lastly, and that is a very big strategic priority for us this half, and you'll hear more about it in a second, is really expanding instant games beyond Messenger, focusing on newsfeed, focusing on entry points inside of Facebook, and really building that out as a discovery and re-engagement surface for instant games as well. So I've mentioned before that when I was standing here a year ago, we had like 100 to 200 live games. We announced in December that we now have more than 6,000 games live globally. It's incredibly encouraging for us and our team to see that so many developers are interested and are investing into instant games. It's much higher than we initially thought it would be 1 year in. So thank you for that, and hopefully way, way more to come. So looking at 2019, what we are thinking about is really about completing the platform. How do we make sure that all the different things that we have invested in can be completed and can really be rounded off? And so when we think about that, we think about three pillars. One is acquisition, that is both organic and paid acquisition. We're thinking about engagement, that is how do we get users back into the game once they actually found the game. And lastly, how can we make monetization even more holistic? How can we bring it to all platforms with all different types of business models? So talking about action, I mentioned that this is about organic and non-organic. So on one hand, we are investing a lot into making discovery easier, more prominent, and bringing it to more surfaces, but we are also investing into a paid ad unit. So here's a couple of examples of what we have done inside of Facebook. I mentioned this is a very big strategic priority for us when it comes to actual discovery. So the first thing that we have announced, and that was late last year, was groups integration. This is something that is rolling out at the moment. Something that we have seen when we actually did our research into expanding into Facebook. We have seen that there are almost 90 million users active in almost 300,000 gaming groups. So there are 90 million users in gaming groups talking with other users about any gaming content, whether that's an instant game or not, that doesn't really matter. But there is already a big community talking about games. And so what we have done, and you can see this here in the Everwing Fans Forever group, we have added instant games into that. So users in gaming groups can now very easily discover instant games through a specific entry point and start playing tournaments with these groups, whether that's a group of 10 people playing Everwing or a group of 3,000 people following the same gaming streamer. We have enabled that, and we're starting to roll that out over the next couple of weeks. A second very big entry point that we have created is in Facebook Lite. Facebook Lite is a great way for users to experience Facebook no matter what their connectivity is and no matter how old their actual device is. And so as you can see, there is now, as you can see on the second screen, there is now instant games inside of Facebook Lite with a very prominent entry point right next to Newsfeed, where these users can see an entire list, and that should help very much expand the user base. What you see on the last screen is that we are building a gaming destination. For those of you who haven't seen that we have announced that, we have a bookmark that is dedicated to games inside of Facebook. And really, we're trying to build a hub and a home for games in Facebook, or for gaming content in Facebook. So that includes, as you can see, instant games, but it also includes gaming video. So no matter what kind of content you enjoy, the games bookmark really is a hub for games and for gaming content where you can easily find it inside of Facebook. As part of adding instant games more into Facebook surfaces, we have also worked a lot on sharing. I mentioned before, if you remember, the game OMG, which is a very viral game that went viral mainly through sharing, which is fantastic and encouraging to us, but also means that there's potential to do that even better. And so we have invested into sharing, mainly focusing on conversions inside of feed and really making sure that this content converts in a very good way as users share it so it can go viral. There are two things we have done here. One is what we call looking for players. What you can see is that in the status bar, this person can actually share words with friends in a way that they are looking for players. This gets shared to Newsfeed and all their friends, and they can easily jump in and challenge this person to a game since he's looking for friends to play with. The second thing that we have done is also worked on the actual sharing unit. So as you can see, this is a static image. This is actually from OMG, where we have added a tap to play overlay, making it very obvious for the users that this is not just a shared image, but it is actually an interactive unit they can tab on. And we have also added a very clear call to action and a very clear identification of the game that they are playing. So Facebook is obviously the strategic priority moving forward this half, but we have also invested in Messenger. We know that that is where a lot of the developers are currently seeing their traffic from, and so we have also invested more in here. We have, with the new redesign of Messenger rolling out, introduced units and categories into the Games tab, really for the purpose of just making it easier to find games of specific categories, making it easier to find trending games, making it easier to find games that friends are playing, so really helping the users find the games that they love. We have also added presence. If you look at the second screen, this is the home screen of Messenger, and you can see the first conversation, Bebe, actually it says she's playing Basketball Forever, and there is a little games icon next to it. Given that this is a gaming friend, I can now click on this little icon directly from my home screen in Messenger and challenge Bebe for a game of Basketball Forever. So again, a very prominent entry point inside of Messenger to really help make the social experience in instant games easier. And then lastly, something that we've started to roll out earlier this year is stale thread suggestions. Sounds much more complicated than it is. All it is another very prominent entry point inside of the actual Messenger conversation. So what you can see here is my thread with Zing. Zing and I have been playing Words with Friends, but we haven't spoken in a while. And so everybody knows the Wave at Zing button, but also next to it, there is now a Play Words with Friends button where you can very easily jump into the game again with that friend. Okay, now we have also invested into ranking. We know that ranking of games is very important. We've heard it a lot from developers as well. And so our main focus on ranking over the last year, ever since we really opened up the platform, and also moving forward, is going to be helping to find users that are most likely to retain in a specific game. For that, we're focusing on two main factors. There are multiple factors going into the ranking algorithm, but the two main ones are virality, so looking at K-factor, and the second one is also retention. That is both short and long-term retention of the game itself. We are also taking load time performance into account. So as I mentioned before, instant games are instant. And so we are taking into account how quickly a game loads. We are also starting to take user ratings into account. User ratings are something that we have rolled out on web so far, not on mobile, but we are looking to roll out on mobile more broadly this half. And lastly, I mentioned it's not only organic, it's also paid. This is our brand new app install unit. It's based on our mobile app install technology. For those of you who use it, you're probably familiar with how powerful it can be, and we're using that same tech to also to also drive instant games acquisitions. We have also added retention optimization to this. So while you can acquire users with campaigns that are more likely to pay, you can also acquire users that are more likely to retain in the long term. Given that most of the instant games are still ad-based, this should help a lot with monetization. Okay. So these are all the things that we've done on the discovery and acquisition side of things. And then obviously the second question is always, once we have all these users and we're broadening it out so users can find it through more entry points, how do we actually get these users back into the game and how do we engage them in the long term? So I mentioned that that is a big priority for us, has been and will be moving forward. There are a couple of tools that we have launched or are launching that are very powerful up to now. The one that I'm the most excited about is home screen shortcuts. Every developer that has an instant game and is not using home screen shortcuts, please start doing so. It's a very powerful tool. It's an API that we have built that can prompt users to add a home screen, to add a shortcut on their home screen to the game. They then have it on their home screen, can tab on that icon, and it immediately opens up the game. So a very, very powerful re-engagement channel alongside bots, and definitely something that you should be using. The second one is notifications in Facebook. I mentioned that we're building the gaming home through a gaming destination in the bookmark. And because of that, we're also starting to leverage notifications. So what you see here is notifications both of streaming content that I follow, but also of games. So again, a very high intent, very relevant, prominent entry point to actually keep re-engagement going. And then lastly, one feedback that we've heard from a lot of our developers is that liquidity is not always easy if friends are not online at the same time. And so we have introduced online matchmaking, which is already available to everyone, which really matches two strangers that play the game or are looking for someone to play with at the same time into one messenger thread. We are currently also testing offline matchmaking, which is intended for turn-based games that are not necessarily real-time. There are also a couple of things that we currently have in testing, which are very exciting. The first one being GIF updates. If you play instant games quite a bit, if you ever share to newsfeed, or if you ever invited a friend, you will have realized that most of the images, or all of the images that are shared, are static. And so we are thinking of automating this, mainly using GIF updates. This is currently in beta testing with a few developers, really, again, focusing on conversions, both in feed and inside of Messenger, to make that more engaging. And this is what it would look like in an example as Words with Friends. The second one is the Reward Referrals API. As you hopefully all know, by policy, you cannot incentivize sharing or inviting friends. But what we are considering is building an API that can reward a user once they have actually challenged a friend that is new to the game, and that friend actively starts participating in the game. Big Fish is doing this. This is the game, and here you can see there is a rewarded referral where once your friend actually starts joining the game, the user can get a referral, but not just for sharing. And then lastly, as I mentioned, monetization is obviously at the core of this. All of this is nice and good, but if you guys cannot monetize it, then there is not really a point in doing all of this. And so we have worked a lot on actually putting more monetization methods onto more platforms. There we go. So more ways to monetize. If for those of you who have not heard yet, we have had Audience Network powering our monetization for I think almost a year now, even longer. But last year we also added in-app purchases as a means of monetizing. In-app purchases are available on Android and on web. They are being used by many games already, but the majority of games, as I mentioned, is still ads-driven. The second thing that we have done, given instant games is cross-platform, so it's both on mobile and on desktop. Desktop, up to now, did not have the opportunity to actually monetize with ads. It did have the possibility to monetize with IAP. We have heard the feedback loud and clear, and we have added interstitial ads into desktop as well. There we go. Into desktop as well, so that traffic is now monetizable too, and we are also working on rewarded video. We have a lot of developers on the platform already using rewarded video, and we obviously want to make sure that that also works for the people that actually play the games on web. There we go. Thank you very much. This is an update of what's happening on Instant Games. I'm here all day today and tomorrow. I also have a bunch of colleagues here. Feel free to reach out or stop us if you see us and you want to talk.